Welcome to the San Diego Business Journal's Community of Business podcast, covering all of the vibrant business activity in the greater San Diego metropolitan area. And now, here are your hosts, Kevin Leet, publisher, and Jeff Clementson, editor-in-chief.
This is Kevin Leet, publisher of the San Diego Business Journal, here with our Community of Business podcast, and our editor-in-chief, Jeff Clementson. Jeff?
Yes, welcome everybody to the Community of Business podcast. And today we are joined by renowned hospitality professional Robert Gleason. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Glad you are here too. And for our listeners who do not know who you are, I've typed out a list of all the things you're involved in the San Diego and state tourism industry. This is just a partial list here, but you are the chair of the San Diego County Lodging Association. You sit on the California Travel and Tourism Commission. You serve in leadership, director, and advisory roles for the California Hotel and Lodging Association, San Diego Tourism Marketing District, San Diego International Airport Arts Committee, and the L. Robert Payne School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at SDSU, where you previously taught hospitality law and policy. And you also have a day job serving as president and CEO of Evans Hotels.
I do.
That
makes me tired just hearing.
That is quite a resume. So with all that expertise, we're hoping you could tell us about what the 2026 outlook for tourism and hospitality in San Diego is. I understand that it might be in flux, but maybe start at the beginning of the year. What was the outlook looking like as of January 1st?
So I think going into the year, we were looking at basically flat. There was sort of an expression in the industry over the last year that flat is the new up, and we're fluctuating in and around that. I think hospitality is the business of optimism, and it's increasingly challenging to face that these days. It's uncertain in some sense, chaotic in some sense, and all of the demand drivers are in flux. So, San Diego depends on an array of demand inducers. So from international travel and conventions and professional meetings and events, and then particularly with leisure travel. And there are sort of headwinds and stressors in all of those spots. That being said, the first quarter of the year was relatively was positive for all of us. And I think what we just see is across those segments and across time, it's just choppier than it's been in the past. The things are moving at kind of in different directions and different trend lines, and subject to pretty significant shocks when there are external forces in the world that tend to act on people's decision making.
I would say that the current shock is obviously the fuel prices and how that might affect travel. I know that I just went on a trip and gas was eye popping for the trip. How does the industry look at those shocks, and what can be done to kind of help mitigate that? Does it long-term planning have to be thrown out the window for more short-term plans? What does people do to kind of look at it when these things happen immediately and kind of cause a ripple?
So that's a lot. I'll start with from a sort of marketing standpoint in general. The idea is that there's a big marketing funnel that starts with Brand USA, trying to get international visitors into the U.S. There's Visit California that works on bringing both international and domestic travelers to California. Then you have your local destination marketing organizations. The biggest in the region is the San Diego Tourism Authority, but there are also efforts in Coronado and Carlsbad and elsewhere. And then you have the individual attractions and hotels and receptors, like all of our three properties. And all of that has been about increasing brand identity and awareness, but then having these individual pillars around luxury travel or around family travel or around cultural tourism or around meetings and events, so that you can pull the levers variously of each of those as you see the possibility of bringing folks in. So, there was a big pivot away from international efforts because, frankly, they're just, the decline in international visitation in the United States is really, really significant, particularly from our Canadian neighbors. And so, we maintain some presence there, but not a lot because there's not a lot to get. Other business, Mexican travel is actually pretty strong, so we've maintained that. And then leaning into where San Diego really shines, individual and family travel, the attractions and all the natural beauty and all the great cultural amenities of this binational region. So we try and focus on where we can. To the rest of your question about sort of the current shock, which is gas prices, it's pretty unfortunate for San Diego, just given the fact that while we have a relative advantage in international travel, just based on the fact that it's a smaller percentage in San Diego, it's a little less than 10%, we could say, well, we're losing a lot of that business, but we can focus on the drive market. Mm-hmm. And San Diego has a huge advantage there with the drive market of Southern California and Arizona. That gets tricky. We used to say in the olden days, back in the 19s, or as my kids would say, but we'd say gas got to $3 a gallon. It was really a challenge, and then it got to be $4 a gallon. All of a sudden, this shock where we're at $6 and sometimes $7, it really does impact people's decision making. And whereas they may substitute out of longer haul travel because of the increase in airfare, so not going to go from, say, Southern California, fly to the East Coast and do a vacation there. They might stay closer to home. So you basically get folks substituting into more affordable ways to travel, because travel ultimately is a discretionary spend. It depends very much on how people feel, and where you have consumer confidence at historic lows. It's really challenging to induce a decision to plan travel and to buy travel and ultimately to follow through.
Yeah, because I remember when the last flight shock, what happened to flights, mm-hmm. Tourism, some of the reporting that we've done at the Business Journal showed that that commuter traveler, the people coming from Orange County, LA, coming to San Diego, Phoenix, Scottsdale, that really made up for a lot of the missing travel that was there before. And I'm wondering if there's solutions that you see beyond that as people go to buses or trains or looking at other ways to do their vacations. That might be more of a macro than just San Diego, but it seems like that's something that could be that people consider.
Yeah, it's a larger issue, and I think it's a regional transportation and planning question. Visit California and all of the statewide DMOs, the destination marketing organizations, engaged in tourism master plans over the last years post-pandemic to look at really long-term sustainability questions in all that sustainability means. So not just environmental, but also economic, and how do we continue to have demand that is sufficient to support all of the amenities and resources that locals like as well. I think folks generally forget that, right? There tends to be this narrative that this is all just tourists coming from elsewhere and enjoying San Diego and taking up resources and space. And the reality is those folks come to San Diego and leave their money, which everyone appreciates, are responsible for a lot of employment in the region. 1 in 8 jobs in San Diego is somehow dependent on tourism. And allow us to have the cultural vibrancy and the culinary scene and all of the other attributes that people appreciate about living in San Diego.
So what do you think makes San Diego's tourism industry, so resilient?
I think it's the combination of what San Diego can provide. We have a obviously incredibly beautiful natural environment that people want to come and experience. But we have something no one else can offer, which is with Northern Baja, this whole binational region, and it brings a vibrancy to the arts, and not just arts offerings and cultural offerings, neighborhood offerings that San Diego can do really authentically in ways that lots of other places can't. We have that. We have a lot of collaborative spirit across not just the tourism ecosystem, but across all sorts of other offerings in the region that allows us to work together, the hotel folks and the culinary folks and the attractions and everybody working together to present a San Diego that everyone wants to come and experience. I think it's the it's the feeling of being here, not just all those things. There's that kind of inescapable sort of experiential aspect of being here.
We just did a story a couple weeks ago about the cruise industry, and what a difference that's making. Has that really affected positively lodging?
I think, yes. I mean, all of it is additive. Each of these individual portions of demand, it's what makes a big city, a successful city and a vibrant city, is being able to have all of those aspects of travel and tourism be successful. We rely on cruises for demand. We rely on conventions for demand. We rely on the attractions to bring folks and bring demand. Our amazing cultural institutions, and now with the addition of the Shell downtown and Jacobs Music Center and the Museum of Contemporary Art and the Conrad, like these amazing facilities and big investments by those organizations, big investments by attractions at the zoo and Safari Park with Element Valley and at Legoland. Those are all really important aspects of or different dimensions of what bring people to town.
Another issue that we've been following is the labor issue, which in San Diego we just passed a law raising minimum wage to $25 an hour by 2030. And then there's also the immigration crackdowns. Maybe explain to our listeners how those things are going to affect the hotel and tourism industry in San Diego.
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying that there isn't anything more important in our business than our associates, right? I mean, we often talk about how no matter how great the facilities are, the most important thing at a hotel are the associates, and it's their job. It's our job to take care of them. It's their job to take care of the guests. The guests ultimately take care of the bottom line. And it's been increasingly challenging on a couple of fronts. The first thing is it's a very labor-intensive business. There are parts of our business where more than 50% of the expenses are in labor. They're very labor-intensive. And so the cost of labor makes things more expensive, right? I mean, it's sort of the basic economics of it. We work very hard to make sure that folks receive a wage that is commensurate with their work and what they're able to do for us. So we have continued to increase those pretty significantly. I think on an industry-wide basis, wages have raised an average of about 75% since the pandemic.
Wow.
So, our average worker is making 3/4 more than they were 5 years ago. In the face of that, we have efforts across the board, but particularly here locally in the city of San Diego anyway, to raise tourism worker wages. So we participated very heavily last year in conversations around that effort. Ultimately, we're able to reach a compromise with the proponents that increases the wage for tourism workers, attraction workers, and event center workers. So think Petco Park, SeaWorld, and hotels, to $19 an hour starting in July, and that goes up $1.50 a year until, as you mentioned, it reaches $25 an hour. the challenging thing in those conversations for all of us is that in the hotel business, the only people who make the minimum wage are workers who rely predominantly on tips and service charges. So restaurant servers, bartenders, spa workers, banquet servers, those workers are typically making 2 or 3 times the minimum wage when you consider their total compensation. For our workers who rely predominantly on their wage, they're already making significantly above that. So, it's a challenging narrative because, at this point, 100% of the increase in that minimum wage is going to workers who are primarily tipped workers, and not to the folks that everyone would like to help the most. So it makes it harder for us to increase wages for everybody else. On the labor availability part of the question, the cost of housing and the cost of transportation are a real significant challenge for our industry. They make workers move farther away from the location of employment, and that's a challenge. And then on top of that, you just have a long-term availability issue with immigration policy. And look, there hasn't been real meaningful path to citizenship for generations, frankly, at this point, right? Since immigration reforms in the 1980s, there's been talk about it in every Congress since, and no ability to bring that forward. What that means is that the immigrant workforce that does exist and does want to work and is willing to work and that we would want to employ are largely refugees. And so in San Diego, for a long time, that was Central and Western African employees. And then most recently, it's Haitian refugees who are here, all of whom are here on temporary protected status. And that's a program to bring, it's an international relief program, it's an economic development program, and it's also a program that's been a target of this current administration, who's been doing their best to rescind all of those temporary protected status executive orders, because it turns out that's all of those are a creature of executive order. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the Haitian workers today make up about 5% of the tourism workforce, or at least the hotel workforce in San Diego. So for us, we do everything. We've done everything in English and Spanish for decades. We do everything in English, Spanish, and Creole now because we have such a significant number of Haitian employees. So those folks have been on edge for the last 15 months, and there's been a lot of court activity. They are currently, their temporary protected status is extended, but it's in front of the Supreme Court, and and any day you sort of risk the possibility that those folks are no longer authorized to work, which is a real human tragedy.
There's a couple more things I wanted to talk about. One being that tourism technology. You're talking about the 5% of the workforce right now being Haitian. Of course, every industry is looking at downsizing because of AI and other technologies. What is it that might be able to be used technology-wise in the industry that you see? And San Diego is also a home to a lot of technology companies. We got Cloudbeds and other places that work specifically on technologies for the tourism and hospitality industries. What do you see is coming down the pike for the possibility of having it being less labor intensive through technology?
I think given all the things we've already talked about, right, revenue challenge and how much labor, how labor intensive the business is, and ultimately over time, as productivity increases, labor becomes more expensive, right? That's how the economics work. So it's been our job over years to try and operate as efficiently and effectively as possible, and also do it in a way that meets the needs of the consumers, right? You have to have consumer acceptance for those sorts of things. So slowly, fast food has gotten you to fill your own soda and maybe place your own order, and sometimes folks do that begrudgingly. We've tried very hard in our business not to be substituting human touch and human service where people expect to see that. And part of the experience of travel is that kind of human interaction. All that being said, it's changing all the time, right? I mean, I started in reservations, many years ago, and we barely had a computer at the time, but we were still working from a lot of handwritten sheets, and registration cards at the front desk were printed out every day. We don't have that anymore, right? You see, in a lot of cases, mobile check-in. A lot of cases, your digital key. So you may never encounter somebody before you get to your room. And there are a lot of things in our business that robots aren't ever going to do. People are trying, right? There's a lot of folks who are trying to innovate in the space, but really getting robots to clean rooms and provide that that kind of level of service, it's a long way off. Yeah. Maybe you get some help in the kitchen, but not so much with service and in food and beverage and in those kind of spaces. I don't think anybody wants a robot massage. So there's a limit to what you can do there. Where we really see technology and AI particularly influencing the travel business as a whole is through travel planning. The being able to provide ideas for folks, right? You can start a ChatGPT prompt and have a conversation that says, I want to go to San Diego. I'm thinking about going to San Diego. I've got 6 days, and here's my family structure, and here are the kind of things I like, and here's what I want to see, and what do you think I should do? And in that way, it's exciting about you having better ways of getting your information in the hands of consumers, right? Getting higher visibility for more interesting, more local, more authentic sorts of experiences in the business and things people might otherwise never have come across. It's interesting because it kind of cuts both ways. The ease of that booking and has made it so that the time between when people book and when people arrive is shortening all the time. And so the booking window that used to be many, many months is a couple of weeks now. So everybody's learning to adapt to the new normal in this space.
That's fascinating. Last thing was, San Diego as a region of expertise in tourism, and you are a former instructor and still work with the Robert Payne School at SDSU. How is the industry as a whole view San Diego in its expertise and its like ability to put out good professional people in the hospitality industry?
Yeah, well, that's been a great San Diego success story and San Diego State University's success story. The school really grew out. It's 25 years old this year. It grew out of conversations between town and gown with the industry saying, we've got a lot of great workers. This is the industry of on-the-job training. This is the industry where you can start, on the line level and facing customer-facing jobs and learn and grow. And most probably of managers are in that space. There's also a role for, 4-year degreed managers in the space. And so The industry itself has worked very closely with San Diego State to support that school and grow them. I know from the very beginning, Carl Winston, who's the founding director there and still there, really focused on graduating not just individuals who would be great managers when they started, but individuals who would be great leaders in 10 years. So they focus a lot on what does it really mean to be a leader in the space? How do you motivate workers? How do you really think in a forward future sense? How do you really truly embody the heart of service that's required? So in that sense, while there are many hotel schools across the country, there are very few that have that sort of singular focus on the long-term career aspect of being a leader in hospitality. So it's great. All the national chains, all the companies come and recruit managers out of that program. It's unusual from that perspective. Also, that they have a really large portion of the students that are in events and production program, because there's so much in San Diego that is about those big events coming to town, whether not just conventions, but all the big sporting events and festivals and all the amazing things you can do outside in San Diego that you can't do anyplace else because it's too cold or too hot or too buggy or too whatever. And it's always just perfect in San Diego.
Gotta love that.
Just perfect. What a great place to end it. Robert, thank you again for joining us on the Community Business Podcast. And Kevin, did you have a final word?
Yeah, thank you. You're always fascinating. I could just listen to you for hours. Your breadth of knowledge is amazing. Join us at the San Diego Business Journal, sdbj.com. If you'd like to subscribe, we've got all the information there. And please join us at our CEO of the Year Award at the Proud Farmer and the Seahorse up in Serena Valley. Thank you. Appreciate you, Robert.
It's my pleasure.
This has been a podcast from the San Diego Business Journal, the community of business. Keep watch on the journal's website, sdbj.com, for this and other podcasts, past and future. Copyright San Diego Business Journal, all rights reserved.